Hi everyone, welcome. I'm here with Mike, a physiotherapist who has been doing some really exciting work showing that chronic pain, even things like unexplained back pain and things like fibromyalgia, don't have to last forever. So, in this video, I'll be sharing a bit about my own journey with fibromyalgia too. So, today we're going to talk about how the brain can actually change, how pain can be rewired, and how people are learning to recover. Our goal is to give hope to anyone living with unexplained or long-term pain. Because the truth is, change is possible, and life after chronic pain is possible too. So let's dive in and hear from Mike and see what he's seen and how it all works in the clinical setting. So, Mike, can you give me a bit of a background about you for anyone that doesn't
Yeah,
know
of
you?
course. Thanks for having me. So, I guess like most people, I had quite a traditional route to being a physiotherapist. I wanted to be that guy running on the pitch, helping someone with an injury. But as time went on and I was seeing lots of people in the NHS, I quickly realised that my strength probably wasn't in watching someone run and necessarily the minute details of seeing how they move their body. It was more when I sat down with people who had quite a long journey with pain, whether that be back pain, whether it be pain over different areas of the body. And it was in the conversations that I was having with people where I realized I was making a difference rather than necessarily a particular special test that I was doing or finding the perfect exercise for them. The thing that was helping them change was the conversation, and I guess that helped me go into an area of physio, an area of healthcare where I could use that, which is where I spent a lot of time in specialist pain service, which I'm sure some of the people watching this will be familiar with. And again, where I could use the art of communication and a clinical conversation, if you like, to really make change to people's life. Because I guess when people have been in pain for a very long period of time, for whatever reason that might be, they lose a lot of trust, not only in their own body, but in the healthcare system. Lots and lots of different things. People are very hypervigilant, rightly so, quite skeptical of what people have to offer. So I have lots of information that I want to share with people, but how I get that to them is based off trust. And as I'm sure you know, trust doesn't just grow on trees, that has to be earned. So, yeah, I guess that's how I ended up then posting things on social media, because there's so much information out there on how people can actually move forward with long-term pain. But getting that message across has to be done really carefully for many reasons, which I'm sure we could potentially go into. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, when did you start noticing people that were coming to you with unexplained chronic pain, they start to get better? Kind of what you must have noticed from your own training in pain management and as a physiotherapist that there were people coming to you
Hmm.
who had been told their whole lives that they had to just manage the pain.
Yeah.
But I think with you, you start to notice a shift where they weren't just having to manage their pain anymore. You said yourself that your patients started getting better. So what happened there? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I guess it's when, if we're talking about someone who's been diagnosed with, say, widespread pain like fibromyalgia, or where I really come into my own is more working with people with long-term back pain who have been told, oh, it's just wear and tear. You need to learn to live with it. Chronic back pain, it won't get better. That's when I really noticed that there was things that could really shift the narrative. And I guess it's helping people understand that pain is a story of protection. So one of the things I don't like to do is to go super scientific with people, because I know myself, when someone digs into the science too much, it just gets all a bit much to handle. But if we think of pain as a story of protection, sometimes that story of protection is very clean and simple. It could be, I sprained my ankle, it got swollen, therefore it hurts when I walk. Maybe don't walk on it as much because the body's trying to repair. That's a very simple way of how pain works. The story is don't walk on it, and the kind of moral of the story, if you like, is because we're trying to repair. Where that story becomes a bit deeper, maybe has a few more pages, becomes a little bit more difficult to read, is when someone's had pain for a long period of time. They might have had an initial injury. That's the kind of first chapter of the story. Then they might have gone to see a GP and they felt somewhat dismissed, maybe because it was a short appointment, or they felt that they weren't listened to, or they were given some medication when actually they think they needed something else. Then they might have had a scan, and things like scans can go one of two ways. They can either be really, really reassuring because someone's like, I haven't got such and such condition, or they can actually be more harmful than good because someone sees lots of stuff, lots of bits and bobs on a scan, and they go, oh no, I've got a disc bulge. That's what am I going to do now? Do I need surgery? Do I need an injection? So it creates a lot of fear. And I could go on lots and lots of more chapters of someone's story, but all of that stuff really matters because it builds this narrative that the body isn't safe and it needs protecting. And that's why I talk about a story of protection. So put really simply, if someone's back initially went when they were picking up something out of the dishwasher, and that caused absolute chaos, they were off work, they couldn't look after their kids as they would like, the next time they go to pick something out of the dishwasher, what's going to happen to their back? Well, it's going to tense up. They're going to be worried. Their pain sensitivity is going to go through the roof because their pain is telling them, all of that happened last time. You do not want to go back to that place. Let's protect you. So I guess when I started, back to your initial question, when did I start noticing people could get better? It was when we started looking into the story of why their body is in this overprotection.
Yeah, you communicated that so eloquently then. You just did.
It sounded like absolute waffle when I was.
No, it didn't at
I'm glad
all.
that it came across.
Because I have a science background, I think sometimes I come out with these big words and I kind of lose my listeners. And the way you've just kind of described it there is brilliant. And I actually want to tie that into my own story.
Absolutely.
So when I first started getting symptoms of pain, there was such a heightened fear. What I was going through in life was I had just come out of surgery for endometriosis.
Mm-hmm.
I had a longer recovery than anticipated. Because of that, I'd lost my current jaw. And then I'd had to start on contraception to try and control the endometriosis going forward. And I was terrified of the pill. I'd heard so many horror stories about people falling into depression and having blood clots, and I really struggled with that idea. And all these things combined, I then started to notice like a twinge of my neck, my shoulders. I started feeling more tired quicker, and like my head was just spinning. It was just thinking, I can't do this. Maybe I've not fully recovered from surgery. Maybe I need more support. And every time there was like a slight little sensation in my pelvic area, I thought, oh no, did the surgery not work? Do I need to go back? Is there something wrong? Am I having a side effect to the contraception? What about the other prescriptions I take? Is there something going on there? That was an activated nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
I was so hypervigilant. I was watching every sensation in my body like I was a hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Every little thing had this massive story around it.
Yeah.
So when a slightly bit of pain came on, I was absolutely terrified. And what happened there was I fell into the pain, fear cycle. You experience a few sensations, you have a high level of fear, and it reinforces that pain because
Absolutely.
you're accidentally telling your brain that you are in fact in danger, and the only way it knows how to keep you safe in those levels of danger is to produce pain in order to try and protect you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can see how with your patients and my lived story, that even though I had a fibromyalgia diagnosis and you're working with patients with unexplained long-term chronic back pain, the story's the same, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And
What other
I guess
I was going to say, what other stories and kind of patient stories did you come across? I think people watching this video will want to see, want to compare
Yeah,
and see what other people have gone through just to validate their own experience. Because, like you said, they go to the GPs and they just feel so dismissed. So, what else have you seen with your
yeah.
patients?
Well, I guess that, you know, it's taken away anyone's details because I don't want to get in any kind of bother with that. But I'll relate one particular story which goes into probably a very common story. Is someone will have an initial injury. Let's take someone in their early 30s. They have an initial injury 2 months after giving birth. They bend over to pick their child up and bang, their back goes. Then they'll go to see a doctor, a GP, and, you know, be asked some questions. They might be given some pain relief and say, do a couple of exercises, come back if it's not helping. Then someone might go back to the GP because it's not helping. And then usually what happens in the UK is they'll get referred on to physio. And then they go, in the meantime, they might have been to see an osteopath, chiropractor, or, you know, if they haven't, then they'll sit on the waiting list for physio for maybe 6 weeks to a couple of months. And bearing in mind, none of this is me trying to, you know, any kind of down talking of the system. This is just reality. This is people's journey that they go on. And I guess at that point, some people hopefully get better, but then there's lots of people we know that don't, for a variety of reasons that I'll go on to. So yeah, they'll go and see a physio potentially, where things aren't getting better. So naturally you're like, well, what's causing this pain? And then that's when, hopefully, if we're talking about something like fibromyalgia, someone's had the relevant blood tests. If they're getting any particular inflammatory signs, or they're saying yes to some very specific questions, they might be referred to a rheumatologist. So I guess the story is they go and see lots and lots and lots of people and aren't necessarily getting the clarity on the situation that they want. And as they're going from person to person, if we talk about this story, new chapters keep on getting added to the story. And for a lot of people, and chuck into that social media now, every third post someone sees is, do this exercise, don't do this exercise, this is what's causing your pain, this isn't what's causing your pain, it's all in your head, it's in your body, it's disc, it's not the disc, it's your gut. There's all sorts of information out there, which some people might find, that helps me make sense of it. But a lot of the time, the mixed messages just add to this, like, I'm broken feeling. And particularly with back pain, which is, again, where I spend a lot of my thinking time, is, you know, people are saying, don't bend, don't lift, you might damage your back, have a neutral spine, look after your posture. Every single message that people hear is about protection. So then what happens when they do go to move, and you know, this translates to fibromyalgia as well, is watch what you're doing, be careful. And all of, you know, if we think about being careful, what does that look like? It looks like tension, it looks like being stiff, it's robotic. So the messages that people are getting are feeding this, you know, narrative of protection, which isn't just, I'm always careful if people think I'm talking about psychology, which obviously I am, but we can't really separate that, because as soon as you think something, you do something, and that shows up in the body. So again, I'm waffling a bit, but to come back to your initial question of what particular stories, if someone has been, and I'm keeping it general because every story almost follows this path, is I'll see someone when they've probably had a scan, maybe seen a consultant, whether that's a rheumatologist or a surgeon, and then there's like, okay, we don't have a specific intervention, an interventional target like an injection, a surgery. Now, you know, go and see Mike, which can go a couple of ways. People come in most of the time thinking they're at the end of the road with back pain. So that can be like, how are you going to help where no one else has been able to help already, or they can be like, I've tried everything, you know, what's the harm in trying something more? So then my approach is, first of all, the priority is how can I build trust with this person when they've had an awful journey with pain, all of the reasons I've discussed. How can I build trust? And then once we've got a trusting relationship, well, then we've got license to go in whichever way we want to, really. And a lot of it is just about unpacking what the hell has happened. So why are you so fearful of movement? Why have you got an idea that your body is broken beyond repair? And once we have a really honest and open, kind, compassionate conversation about that, people start to draw things that they'd never draw kind of lines between things that they'd never kind of compared before. So like, okay, the reason why my body goes into tension when I'm doing this particular movement is not just because that's what happened the first time I hurt it. It's because the first time I hurt it, I was off work, I couldn't look after my kids. So you're carrying that heavy weight with one particular movement, it's got so much weight behind it. So things like that, I guess it's, if we want to go scientific again, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, it's compassion focused therapy, but I don't really get too bogged down with the names of it. I think it's just treating people with kindness and openness to help them see their story in a slightly different way, and then giving them very clear, actionable steps to move forward, to build confidence, to work on who they want to be, all of that good stuff.
People watching this are going to go one of two ways. They're going to think, wow, that resonates with me. You're right. When my pain came on, I had a high level of fear. So many things were happening in my life, and this is going to resonate with them. On the other side, you're going to have people like who I was a couple of years ago thinking, what do you mean this level of pain that I'm in is all, they're going to think, well, is it my fault? Are you saying that I'm weak? Are you saying that I've caused myself to be in this much pain? And they're thinking, well, I don't need to take any medication or injections to get better. I remember when my pain was coming on, because of my background in science, I went into full research mode. I was thinking, is it like a nervous breakdown? Do I have, is it osteoarthritis? Is it just high levels of inflammation? Is it a viral infection that I picked up? I was like, is it lupus? I looked at all those things. And it just seems like I was overlapping in several symptoms, but just not fully making it into any of those conditions. And I just didn't understand it. So when I came across this idea of neuroplastic pain, I was skeptical. I thought, no, there's no way that I can just turn off my pain. There's no way that all of this is because of my brain having been conditioned and working incorrectly, like processing the environment around me incorrectly and producing the wrong signals as a result. The idea that it was my body in pain, and to then think, actually, it's not anything that I don't have to do acupuncture and massages and hot and cold therapy. I don't have to do any of that. I just have to go through sessions of just rewiring my brain, which is several therapeutic techniques, and sticking to it and having that core belief that actually I have the power to get better.
Did anyone help you come to that that way of thinking, or that conclusion that was a large contribution to your experience?
So I remember Googling. The first thing everyone does is Google. And
Absolutely.
I didn't see
ChatGPT these days.
Yeah. I don't think AI was a thing back when I was diagnosed, and nothing came up. It was just morbid. It was just really upsetting. However, I came across one woman who was wheelchair bound with fibromyalgia, who had posted online of her having now hiked a mountain, and I thought, how? There is no way. And then I had a dietitian at the time, and I talked to her and I said, look, I've just been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I don't think these sessions, we can continue these because I just have too much on my plate. And she said, my daughter had fibromyalgia, and you should see her now. And I asked, what does she do? And she said there was nothing in particular, but she did work very closely with a trauma-informed therapist.
Hmm.
And then I started going down this rabbit hole of thinking, of linking how life adversity and trauma and stressful experiences are very closely linked to chronic pain. That was my
Absolutely.
understanding
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. And even when I think when we think of trauma, we immediately jump to big trauma, significant events that can happen. But I see people who wouldn't identify themselves as having a traumatic childhood, for example, but actually when you talk back through their story through healthcare, there's lots of things along the way which were just really, really hard from them, different messages that they were given, different consultations that hadn't gone to plan. And so when we think of trauma, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you can immediately click your fingers and go, it was that. It can be little things that are happening on the way, which I guess shape your nervous system
You
and the
are,
way that
yeah.
you respond to threat.
I've heard people before their wedding day end up diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So even positive life experiences like moving house, changing jobs, getting married,
Hmm.
they register as stress in the body. And if left
Absolutely.
unchecked, it accumulates. And what does your brain do? It steps in and tries to keep you safe. And the only way
Yeah.
it knows how to communicate, it can't speak to you. The only way it knows how to do that from an evolutionary perspective, try and get you to slow down and take care of yourself, is produce pain.
Hmm. So
I get
what would you say to
go on.
someone who's had all of the investigations, they've seen a rheumatologist, and they've been given a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which is still kind of a diagnosis of exclusion, which means people are given that diagnosis when all of the other tests have been proven that it's not. What would you say to someone who is just finding it really difficult to see and accept that diagnosis?
I would ask them to look at their day to day. Notice a pattern. When do your symptoms come on? Are they worse at certain times? Maybe certain emotions, stressful situations? When you're running or with you spending time with your family or going on holiday, do your symptoms retreat? When do your symptoms move around, changing consistency and quality? Do they kind of, when, or if you focus on your symptoms, do they intensify or move around? Do your symptoms mirror each other? Let's say you've got pain in your right wrist. Do you also experience that same pain in your left wrist as
Hmm.
well? So take a closer look at your symptoms. If your answer is yes, my pain moves around, it intensifies or retracts in certain situations, or yes, there is a clear pattern. Maybe I find that in summer my pain is lower because I'm distracted, and in winter it's higher, or when I eat a certain thing, we end up accidentally conditioning ourselves to triggers. Then that tells you that the pain is neuroplastic. And I would tell yourself, if all these specialists have ruled out everything and they're telling you you're fine, there is nothing structurally wrong with your body.
Hmm.
What's left is your brain.
Yeah. Something I find really difficult with working particularly with people with fibromyalgia is giving them a sense of hope, which we know that there is hope, but not overselling that hope. And I've called it the optimism dilemma. Is I want to just get behind someone and say, look, you can do this. These are all the things that we can do, without selling them a dream that
Yeah.
your pain's going to be gone in 3 months. And that's quite a difficult tightrope to walk sometimes, because we have to be empowering. We have to show that there's light at the end of the tunnel. But overdoing that, it might look unrealistic, but could also be, not the kindest thing to do as well.
I get that problem with my clients all the time. They say, how can you look at me and tell me that there is potential for me to get better? And it's only because I've lived the story and with my other clients seen such a big improvement so quickly that I've seen
Mm-hmm.
the evidence. People come to me with the same story, same symptoms. They always think it's just them, that they're the
Mm-hmm.
only ones with those symptoms. They're the only ones that have gone through that experience. And it's like, no, I've seen it all the time. So you're right, it's a really delicate balance. It's because in the
It is.
Western world, we solve everything through a prescription of tablets.
Yeah.
Take this medicine, you'll be okay. But what if that medicine isn't a tangible thing?
Hmm.
Therapy exists and people
Yeah.
recover from PTSD and etc. So
Hmm.
why can't this exist as well?
Yeah. But if you've
So
already got the medication, it's just already within you. You've got to find a way of
exactly.
unlocking it.
Yeah, you are the cure. So I do want to kind of wrap things up now. And I think my final question to you is for anyone watching this video and they're thinking, do you know what? I resonate with this. Maybe they've got chronic back pain that they've not been
Hmm.
able to kind of get any support with, or they have
Hmm.
fibromyalgia. What would you tell them to do next after this video?
So, I think first of all, I'd ask them to just be as open and curious as possible, because a lot of this can seem quite foreign. This impact that confidence has on the body, the impact of fear has on the body, the impact of previous healthcare experiences has on the body. And then I would just ask them one question, which is what I will always ask the people that I see, is it unpacks a lot. What movements or activities have you become cautious about, stopped doing? Because if they're struggling to see that potentially fear has a role on their pain story, this opens up the door. If I just ask someone, I'm going to give away all my secrets here, but if I just say to someone, what are you scared of, what are you fearful of, they go, well, I'm not scared, it's painful. But if I say, what have you become cautious about, it almost de-threatens that question a little bit. And someone might say bending, lifting, or it could be playing football or going for a walk. And then it's ask yourself, why have you become cautious about it? Is it because someone's told you not to do it? Is it because someone's told you it's dangerous? Is it because you don't want to flare up? All very, very valid reasons, but until you start to question the reasons that your behavior, your habits have changed and these protective habits have built up, that will feed this idea of protection. So it's all about questioning your own story, which starts with your beliefs and your fears. That would be my first step for people, for something that they can do themselves. But it's really difficult to do by yourself because, it's confronting. We have biases, and that's why therapy exists for things like PTSD and OCD and persistent pain. When we're looking at people's behaviours, their habits, it's no different really. Having someone else to who you trust to challenge you is probably, and that's why I often see myself more as a coach than a physio, because
Yeah.
it's helping people to move forward.
Yes. So that's the work that we both do. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Well, I hope that I've put enough videos on TikTok now that someone can just type in on TikTok Mike back pain physio and I'll come up. But the handle is at rewrite pain, and I've got a website as well, which is rewritepain.co.uk.
Perfect. Great. So if anyone's watching and wants to reach out to Mike or watch his videos, you know where to find him. Anyone who's watching with fibromyalgia, at Curing Fibromyalgia is my TikTok. Okay. Thank you, Mike. It's honestly been a pleasure. I genuinely think everything that you've talked about today is going to give people so much hope. And if you're watching, and even if you don't have this yourself, or if you know someone, maybe it's your wife or your kids that have this, you know that there is hope and you know where to find us. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks for having me. I could talk about this stuff all day.
We might have to get you back.